Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl.
I mean, who wants to have sex with a guy named Bob?
Oh, Bob. Just doesn't sound right. Oh, Bob.
Bob. Oh, Bob.
Oh, Bob.
Bob. Bob. Bob. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-R-T.
And Josh Adams.
You goddamn communist heathen, you had best sound off that you love the Virgin Mary, or I'm gonna stomp your guts out. Now, you do love the Virgin Mary, don't you?
Visit us at ihatecritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our Twitter and Instagram handle is CriticsPod. There you can participate in our top fives, watch the trailers, read Sean's reviews, look at the 88 movies, and all sorts of stuff. Interact with one another. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. Please go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll read your review on the air. It's been a while since we've gotten one. But finally, since going to Libsyn, we're back into the charts, which is nice. And a review will help us move up even faster, so we'd appreciate your help with that. And then Patreon, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. I finally bought a whole ton of merch. We can finally send out some mugs for people who haven't gotten them yet. People who have got them, we have corrected logos now, bumper stickers. I even threw in magnets to kind of as an apology for not sending anything out forever. So that should be... I don't got it yet, but I placed an order. Hopefully I get it this week, and then we can start getting some of that stuff out. So I may be asking for addresses in the near future. So if you're a Patreon supporter, please get me your address. And then we have a bonus episode coming out on time travel. It's been recorded. We're going to release it on Patreon first. It's a 2-hour episode. And then... we're going to break it into 2 episodes that we're going to eventually give to the regular audience because we did put a lot of work in it, specifically Josh, and we want everybody to hear it, but we're going to let the patrons listen to it first.
They get to hear it first, and then you get to hear it in the future as a split time podcast.
Right.
Yes. More terms about time.
So if you'd like to time travel, become a Patreon member.
Yeah.
You get to go into the future.
Very
and listen.
nice. If you want to hear more jokes like that, get the time travel episode where I get riddled up and down with bullets on either side.
In another universe, you've already listened to this.
Yes.
Most of the time it was a joke. Sometimes we were just flat out mean. At least I was.
And I didn't know the difference. It's blissful ignorance.
Hopefully it was, you thought it was jokes and not mean. I felt a little rude with the interstellar conversation, but that's what I do.
Oh, see, I live with that.
Good. You should. Trailers. We'll start. We have one trailer this week and then one little bit of news. We'll start with the trailer, Captive State.
Captive State. This is... not sure exactly who this is. This is John Goodman as the president, I believe, and then the purge is happening or something, and then... I was not blown away by this, and I know you were, Josh, but I don't know. This didn't really do anything for me. It looked like the stadium scene from Dark Knight Rises plus The Purge.
Well, yeah, I fell victim a little bit to a surprise in the trailer that I didn't expect at all. At first, I was thinking to myself, all right, so this looks something standard. Is this like a comment on our current society? Is this like a hypothetical film where fascism does win or something like that? Because of the seriousness of the cut scenes in this teaser, then you get to the end of the trailer and you can see it for yourself, but there's this big ship that's hovering over a football stadium, and all of a sudden I say, ooh! Now, okay, as a guy that doesn't see that much that's surprising in trailers anymore, at least that got me interested in it. I'm not saying that Rupert Wyatt is a strong director. He has made a couple of projects that I've paid attention to, though. Visually, he's an interesting director. So, and as popular films go, this seems like possibly an interesting idea set in March, you know, in between Captain Marvel and Avengers 4, something that might tickle my intellect a little bit.
Yeah, it looked, and I like the cast. Was it Vera Farmiga? Was she in it?
Vera Farmiga, yep.
and John Goodman. They tend to be reliable, although they can be in crap too. But sometimes they're in really good movies, both of those two. So that has me a little bit more interested in it than, say, Gerard Butler or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the last time that I saw a teaser for a movie released in March with John Goodman in it, it was 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that ended up being a really excellent movie.
Now what you're doing is the opposite of what Sean does, is you're putting it on a pedestal. Sean knocks it down so he can like it a little bit.
Yes, I will go in with the weight of all of my own expectations.
Must you reveal all my secrets?
Yes, that's what I do. And then Henry Cavill has either quit or been fired from Superman.
Oh no, please don't go.
I disagree. I think he's the perfect Superman.
Yeah, he's absolutely the perfect Superman.
Bland and handsome?
Well, yeah. Bland and handsome, and reminds us of like maybe the best of ourselves a little bit through the eyes of an alien, the entire embodiment of what the comic character was, and a little fallibility to it as well. I mean, the indestructible man is a little fallible. He's already died, for crying out loud, and come back. So he's already gone through the Jesus routine, and they can maybe work on character development, and now we're going to have to see it with somebody else if they do it. And what really bothers me is DC's non-committal towards setting a plan going forward. And then everyone that's interested, that's involved in these projects, they're so wishy-washy with them. Affleck, Cavill, et cetera, including the directors, Snyder, Whedon. They play around with it so much it just pisses me off because I love this stuff.
It's a little presumptuous to say they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan they've shared with anybody. And that's the thing, is even if they did have a plan that they shared with everybody would just be shitting on it right now. They would all just shit on it because that's all we ever do as a culture is then, well, we've got a plan. No, we've decided to part ways with Henry, and we've got a plan to go forward. And everybody's like, boo, boo, we're not going to listen to your stupid plan, boo. Well, maybe they just don't say anything about it.
The facts of the matter are, though, that this franchise has had no clear direction from the beginning of its inception. Mm-hmm. Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, but it was supposed to be something that they wanted Christopher Nolan to oversee. And he oversaw the script and the production. He's counted as an executive producer on that. And then he's like, okay, that's all I want to do. Then they had Zack Snyder in charge of the whole thing. Then they're disappointed in returns for Man of Steel. Then they bring people from the DC Comics world in, like Jeff Johns, to run the film wing. Now they're making other changes. Now they aren't committing besides Wonder Woman 1984 and Aquaman and Shazam, and they won't even commit to having Black Adam, the main protagonist, with Dwayne the fucking Rock Johnson, in the movie. So there's actual factual basis for me stating that they don't have a plan. I don't care if they don't reveal their current plan, but they've already given us stuff through 2021 that they've already scaled back much of, including the Cyborg movie, the Batgirl movie, the Green Lantern Corps movie, which is supposed to come out in a year and a half, and we haven't heard shit about it. I think it's because they suck at planning.
I think if I may take the position of the accountant here, they're making business decisions based off of the business that they've already done. They've already failed multiple times, and yeah, they're going to have to scale it back because of the fact that they've failed multiple times.
Okay, so go ahead.
But they haven't failed. They've actually been very successful. The opinions have been mixed, but they should have just either stayed the course or But
they haven't really made all the money that they thought they were going to make. I mean, I'm sure they planned to make a great deal more money than they did.
Well, I understand that, but at this point, you're not going to, if you stay the course, I mean, you're not going to make the money now, period, no matter what you do, unless you start over again, which people probably aren't going to be interested in at this point. You either need to let it breathe or just stay the course, and they did neither.
I think with Batman and Superman, you can start over again anytime you want to. I think those characters, and especially if you pick the right creative and the right actor, you can start over Batman and Superman whenever you want.
Do you think that is going to happen? Matt Reeves turned in his script for the Batman this week, actually, amongst the flurry of news that got lost. That's part of it. So maybe they start again with a new Batman there that's younger, and they kind of take us up to speed. And if they ever want to do anything Justice League again, then they've got something in their back pocket and can just throw another Superman in there. But in the meantime, I really appreciate Henry Cavill in this role, and I think it's very unfortunate that they couldn't commit to the guy that they built everything from.
I mean, I think if they kind of take this approach that the DC cartoons take and And they're kind of doing that. They have their Joker movie and stuff like that. If they just start making standalone movies and forget about the universe, I think that's their safest bet.
Agreed.
When you start, I mean, I as much as I like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, I don't want to see her with a different Superman every time or a different Batman. I want, just do Wonder Woman movies then. If you want to do your own Justice League movie, I don't know. Just pick a lane and stay with it, or abandon it altogether.
But I disagree with the idea that Henry Cavill is particularly important, and it's because I don't think he's a particularly good actor, but also he's not a particularly great movie star either. The fact is that you put him in a movie, he doesn't sell tickets. Henry Cavill does not sell tickets. I mean, sorry, based on his name, based off of what he's done, he was supporting in Mission Impossible, but Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise were the star, not Henry Cavill. But nobody bought a ticket to see Henry Cavill. Nobody bought a ticket to see Henry Cavill when he played Man of Steel because they were going to see Superman, not Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill doesn't move movie tickets.
I'll interject slightly. I think this news is important because he's grown on people, and he does for me too. It's like many other roles that don't necessarily require a master thespian. I wanted Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker because he's Mark Hamill. I mean, it's the same thing with Henry Cavill. He's grown on me, and I think that's the derision that you're hearing is not random bullcrap, but pointed criticism.
In fairness, I've been a critic of Henry Cavill since well before Superman.
Oh, absolutely. I'm telling you, I like him now, and this is why I'm upset with the news. Regardless of what role he's in, not all of his movies are great. Clearly, like I've seen more than just him in Man of Steel, but I do like him, so it's disheartening for me.
And if you look at the first 4 Batman movies, it seems like when they went over from Michael Keaton, they were lesser movies, and I don't know if they were less successful or not, maybe not, but I don't know. People are going to start losing more interest the more you make changes like that and stick with the universe.
Unless you get the right guy.
I disagree.
I think if they get the right guy, you can do Batman and Superman as many times as you like.
I think that there isn't a right dude. There is no right dude for Superman other than what you've had. What do you need out of Superman? It's exactly what Henry Cavill gave you. The center,
charisma-free handsomeness.
But
yeah,
yes.
I don't think so. I think Christopher Reeve have had a great deal of charisma. I don't necessarily like those Superman movies anymore because I don't know. My opinion on them is evolving, but he was always charismatic. He was always interesting. He's always doing something. He's got something going on, a star quality. He was never a movie star. He never really sold many tickets himself either, but he's a better actor than Cavill.
I can't argue with that point, but in terms of era, the film era that we're in, Christopher Reeve worked really well for that. Henry Cavill, of the bodies that we don't have hulking bodies anymore per se, right? That's why it's so hard for me to think of who would play He-Man, right? It's really difficult because I want somebody that at least has the ability to grow into a particular role. Henry Cavill is like the petri dish of that idea in this modern day and age, and whatever they're doing with him just ticks me off. Ugh.
No, I'm with you completely, and I don't know. I don't think I don't think Superman works the same in this generation as he did before. No. I think that what they did was about as good as you could do it, but then people were upset it was too dark. They're happy Christopher Nolan movie. They like the Christopher Nolan movies. They get them on board. They make a dark movie, and then they complain about being too dark. But it gets better every time you watch it.
Yeah, and there's really so much that they could do with Superman going forward, giving it to a Superman team. Give another director the eye. So many directors have actually vocalized interest in making a sequel to Man of Steel. Top quality directors in terms of who's directing the real big shit these days. Matthew Vaughn and George Miller both said that they'd be interested in doing it. Where's our Man of Steel sequel? And instead we're worrying about developing more series on their streaming service. DC's full of shit, and that's why I'm calling them on it.
All right, let's get to the new movies then. We'll just start with the biggest one, The Predator.
The Predator. This is I don't know how many Predator movies there are if you count AVP movies.
We don't.
We do. They're there. They exist. But this is, I guess, the the least of the group of the main line of Predator movies for me. The story goes around the character played by Boyd Holbrook, who is a sniper who encounters the Predator and then is taken back to the United States after encountering it and debriefed and told that he didn't see anything, that this Predator, you're just crazy. You're a crazy person. You're going to go on the crazy person bus with all these other crazy people. And the Predator, meanwhile, has followed back to the U.S. I think they were in South America. And he's after his artifacts that Boyd Holbrook had done away with, sent to his family, found by his son, played by Jacob Tremblay. And he's got to get back to the kid before the Predator gets there. Solid idea. I think, unfortunately, I don't know if... I love Shane Black. I do, but I just don't know if directing action is not his forte, maybe. He directs characters very well, and he directs dialogue really well, but action is not his strong suit in terms of directing it in a clear and clarified way. And I had the same issues pop up with him repeatedly. Like Iron Man is terrific in terms of the character of Iron Man, in terms of character of Ben Kingsley, which I know it's controversial, but I really liked what they did with Ben Kingsley. The character stuff, especially with Downey and him, he really gave a lot of unique layers to Iron Man in the way they wrote him. And his writing is always on point. But action here, especially the heavy focus on action here, is not his strong suit, and it gets really sloppy throughout this movie, to the point where near the end, a significant character dies, and if you turned your head for a second, you didn't even know what happened. I mean, it was so lazy and so sloppy and so poorly done that this significant character has died, and you just totally missed it. If you just blinked, you missed this important moment. And that's just, it's a really a testament to the entire film, is the sloppiness of the action. And because it's pretty much all action and not necessarily the kind of Shane Black stuff that I know I was kind of hoping for, aside from Olivia Munn. Olivia Munn seems to be giving kind of a Shane Black character performance, and I was enjoying what she was doing, but Boyd Holbrook, he's not really in it. He doesn't really have that. Thomas Jane has it a little bit, but he's also working off of a tick. He's got something there that he's using, some kind of just an actorial thing that he gets to rely on. Keegan-Michael Key's got kind of the same thing, so they're all kind of relying on character traits as opposed to becoming actual characters, and that's really unfortunate. It's not that this is bad. It's not bad, because Shane Black's not going to direct a bad movie, but it's not great, and it's certainly not as good as the original. It's not even as good as Danny Glover's version, and it's far below what they did with Predators, which Predators is an incredibly underrated movie. I watched it again this week. I wrote about it, and Predators is a hell of a movie. That's a damn Predator movie right there. I really love Predators.
Josh?
I've taken the contrarian spot, it seems, on this week, because a lot of disagreements with the film. I look at your position as sort of the median. You're not saying that it's bad, but also you're missing some of the signature moments that you expect out of not just a Shane Black movie, but an action film. And that's fair, because I don't think that there's streamlined action throughout this film, and it's a little clunky once you get close up to some of these characters, especially this ultimate predator that the film has advertised. A lot of that work, as opposed to it being just a very large man in a suit, which I think it should be. They do a lot of CGI in here, and the CGI is a little ham-handed. I shouldn't be seeing that in a major film release. That's unfortunate. And that speaks to the fact that he doesn't direct action well. I think there's some similarities between that final action scene there and the tanker scene in Iron Man 3. There's a lot of moving parts that we can't really make sense of, and I'm with you on that one. But did I expect something and got exactly what I wanted? Absolutely. I'm incredibly satisfied by this movie, because there's just enough humor. There's just enough feeling to it. And all these characters, as one-dimensional as they may be, that's a sure as hell callback to me of all the other one-dimensional characters in the first two films. I'm not looking for something serious here. I'm not looking for a groundbreaking new direction for this franchise. I want familiarity with some new angles, and I think that's what he was bringing to this project, and what he thought, and what Fox thought, I'm sure, people wanted out of the franchise. Therefore, it works for me. Boyd Holbrook doesn't need to be Arnold Schwarzenegger or even Danny Glover for me. He needs to be the guy that moves the plot along. I'm not concerned about that. Some of the things they do with this film that would be considered Easter eggs, though, I'm 100% down with all that shit. And that's what I hear is the downfall for many people. The third act really sucks. They can't believe the bullshit that they threw into this movie. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool-ass idea. And Shane Black's use of people's supposed disabilities and making them like special and actually putting some viable purpose to that is a really cool idea that, as I understand, stems from him as a person. And it's rare to see that in movies. I think we've seen a couple of things like that over the years, especially with the X-Men franchise or whatnot. That's blatant. But this one's a little more underhanded in saying, like, hey, they might actually be important. And if you're going to inject some new blood into a franchise, I think this is the way to do it. I was immensely satisfied at the end. I didn't think anything other than what I mentioned about the CGI being goofy was a detriment to this. It was like when I walked out of Miami Vice and when I walked out of Mission Impossible 3, Heat, Collateral, all these films that I'm like, oh, I'm an adult. I get to see this crap now, right? It made me feel satisfied. I'm going to see an August or September film that is right in my wheelhouse. It's rated R. I've got the kids somewhere else. It just fit in my wheelhouse. I love it.
Are you putting The Predator on par with Heat and Mission Impossible?
No,
3?
but
Okay.
but it is a similar feeling of walking out and saying, like, this is a night for the adults. I've got to go get the kid later. Like, it's just what I saw my parents returning with when they would go see rated R movies, that sense of satisfaction of, this is what it's like to be an adult. That every once in a while privilege you get without having to dissect math homework. You know, it was satisfying.
I've only seen one Predator movie. I just kind of realized that this week. I haven't seen Predators. I never watched the AVP movies. I haven't seen Predator 2. Just the first one multiple times. My brother went and saw. He kind of said what Sean said. There's funny things in it. It's okay, but the kind of a stupid story. And I've kind of heard that kind of across the board. Other than, and I'm not necessarily not hearing it from you, Josh. You're
Right.
More accepting of where they're going with it. But is $24 million a failure?
I haven't seen the budget for this
88.
one, but 88.
I don't know what international is.
It probably would play better over there, I would imagine, like most things like this. But if you factor in that they probably did $10 to $20 million for reshooting the third act that I've read about, then the budget was more like 60 to 70 million, I think. And then trying to change it for test audiences that probably didn't understand Shane Black's purpose. And I know that he's tried to make excuses for the end and why they reshot it, and it's just fine to me. And like Geek Tyrant, this website that we both know of, we've posted trailers from there before. Shane Black kills the Predator franchise. Well, bullshit. It's not killed. It's some of the same fanboy vitriol that we're all so familiar with now. It doesn't apply to this one. It's not like that. It's a fine action film. If your expectations are like mine, immensely satisfied.
I think 24 million is fine. I don't think this has ever been that popular a franchise. It's a middle brow franchise. It's not Aliens. It's not a franchise you can expect a great deal from. And 24 million is right where it should be. I think Predators was at that number too. And right, that's probably what you should have expected of it. And when you get to 24 on opening weekend and your budget's 88 and you've got international, you can probably pretty easily chalk up 200 million worldwide. I mean, with US and overseas, you'll probably get $200 million out of this movie.
That's good, because I mean, you probably got to throw another 20 on for advertising,
right?
So you're looking at 108.
So it's a solid double, I would say, if you're looking at it from that perspective.
All right. With that, we'll go to our top 5.
Put your top 5. Who's your top 5?
Our top 5 is actual action movies. The top 5 best. Since Josh claims Predator is the best action movie of all time, and Sean calls it middle of the road, apparently. We'll start with Cousin Jeff. He had The Point of No Return, Predator, Die Hard with a Vengeance, T2, and Die Hard. Zach Covemaker has number 5, The Protector, 4, The Raid, 3, Terminator 2, 2, Mad Max Fury Road, and 1, The Raid 2. Jason from New Mexico said what Hoke said. And Hoke went to our Facebook group before the top 5 was released, and he put a bunch of Hulk Hogan movies. Like he does. Let's see here. Shannon Nelson had number 5, The Last Action Hero, 4, Logan, 3, Deadpool 2, 2, Predator, 1, Terminator 2. And Uncle Jeff had number 5, Speed, number 4, The Long Kiss Goodnight, 3, Independence Day, 2, The Kill Bill movies, 1, The River Wild. And now we can get to ours. I had number 5, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because it popped up on an action movie list, so whatever. 4, Heat, 3, Lethal Weapon, 2, Speed, and 1, Mad Max Fury Road. I think it is that good. The more I get away from it, I think it suffers from coming out in a disposable era, I guess. And I put honorable mention to Stallone being better than Arnold. Josh?
I didn't
to read it?
screenshot mine, if you don't mind reading it.
All right, Josh had number 5, Kill Bill, Volume 1, 4, Die Hard, 3, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 2, Aliens, and number 1, The Predator.
Mind you that some of the action films you've mentioned, such as Heat, etc., I do more of like my cop drama genre first, subcategory action. Aliens, as I have admitted on the show, action film first, subcategory science fiction. Whereas the first Alien is science fiction, subcategory horror. So
he identifies with John Cusack from High Fidelity, but he's clearly Jack Black.
And he
notice that Evil Dead 2 is not on my list.
And he did put Heat in his honorable mentions, even though claiming it's not.
Indeed, because a few scenes in Heat are far more action than anything, and have identified other films as action having been bred from the film Heat. So it's important to mention it as an honorable.
I mean, he has literally every action movie ever.
It's not true.
You got Taken in here, man. It's pretty close to every movie.
No, but Taken has like a thing about it. Any of the other Taken sequels, no, but it had its own like moment, you know.
Sean?
John Wick 1 and 2, number 5. Yes, I'll go with Black Panther at 4. The Bourne movies at number 3. I'll go Dark Knight number 2, and the Kill Bill movies number 1.
All right, there's our top 5s. Let's move on to White Boy Rick.
White Boy Rick, yes. In Peppermint we talked about how tone deaf it is. This is another kind of tone deaf idea. This is a movie that's based off of a true story about a guy in Detroit named Rick Wershe. And are you familiar with this guy's story?
Not at all.
The thing of it is that the trailer is so misleading. And I always get yelled at for reviewing trailers and talking about marketing campaigns and movies, but this is a truly misleading marketing campaign because they make this kid out to be some big deal hustler. Like he was a hustler and he was a big spoke in the wheel in Detroit drug scene in 1984. No, he was a low-level guy the whole time. He never really got big at all. He never got big at all. The notable thing about this guy has little to do with his actual life when he was actually dealing drugs. The notable thing about Rick Wershe is that he was the victim of a Michigan state law that basically said if you had a certain amount of drugs on you when you're arrested, you spend the rest of your life in jail. And so at 16 years old, he was sent to prison for life because he had a certain amount of drugs in his house at the time. And he stayed in jail till 2017, until they finally overturned the law. So the movie, probably should be about that instead of this kind of lame-ass gangster movie that we get that's kind of basically defying the marketing campaign at every turn because this kid is he's white trash, living in a white trash neighborhood with a white trash daddy, and he happens to get in with a couple of drug dealers who kind of let him in, but he's also being controlled by the FBI. The FBI is having him make buys in order to keep his dad from getting picked up for selling illegal guns. So he's working for the FBI. He's not an informant because he's trying not to tell what's going on, but at the same time, everybody thinks he's an informant, and it's a whole thing. But this movie, here's the thing. If Rick Wershe was a black guy, do we get this story? Does anybody tell this story? No.
It's a Black Boy Rick.
Right? There's about, because you know why they don't do it? Because it would take a Ken Burns 50-hour documentary to try and tell the story of all the black guys who've gone through what white boy Rick went through. Like, but because it's a white guy, that suddenly this story is notable, and that's tone deaf and on top of this marketing campaign that's just utterly silly. I don't get what they were thinking with this movie.
But you're right. If you make this movie about what they should have made it about, and then work in the black, because it's way more prevalent for them. But you do it through showing this guy's story, and then okay, you see how bad this is. Look at this.
Right.
There's a way to do that,
and no effort whatsoever is made for that. It's all about this guy.
Well, and it sounds like it's all about afterwards. The silly gangster movie.
That he goes to jail at the end. At the end of the movie. So it's not even like you get that. You basically get what I just told you in text.
Well, this way the sequel can be done by Pure Flakes called White Boy Rick 2 Path to Redemption.
Don't know what you're referencing.
Rotten Tomatoes wasn't very kind to it, which is why I avoided it. It was kind of had it right in the middle of the road. It did have it fresh, but just barely. So I avoided.
There's nothing like in terms of the filmmaking. There's nothing bad about it, and McConaughey is as committed as ever. But
that's the problem. Lately, him being committed as ever usually means really good or pretty good, and to just be okay is disappointing.
It's so tone deaf to release this movie right now in the culture that we're in. It's just silly.
All right. Moment you've all been waiting for, Mandy.
Mandy, yes. This is, what was the director's name?
Panos Cosmatos.
Panos Cosmatos. And wow, what an experience this movie is. Nicolas Cage plays a mountain man. He cuts trees, and he's deeply, deeply in love with a woman named Mandy, played by Andrea Riseborough, and she's kind of an unusual-looking woman, but she's unusual in a way that's very interesting and oddly attractive, kind of in this almost alien fashion. And the movie kind of plays into that idea of her being kind of alien in a very unique way, and I really like that. But the thing that strikes you immediately, and what blew me back in my seat as we were watching this, Bob, was King fucking Crimson. God damn it, that's awesome.
Not only that, literally the best King Crimson song ever made. Really the best prog rock song ever, and that's how they open the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you don't know that song, Starless, I think it is. If you don't know that song, literally right when they cut it off, the song goes fucking crazy. And it's just like random instruments doing weird things that just keeps building, and literally the movie is that part of the song. And it's just, there's no way he didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah.
But it's just, you almost have to go listen to that song, Starless. I think it's called Off Red, I think is the name of the record. Just a weird, phenomenal song that totally works with this movie. And even before that, they just had these kind of, they're not lyrics, but like heavy metal type lines. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of on board for this.
This is so metal. It's so great.
It is literally a heavy metal opera.
It really is. It really is. That score, absolutely. That man, oh, what a loss to the world. Johannes Johann, I just
read about that this week.
Yeah, he is so incredible, and it's just such a loss that he is not there, and what he and Panos Cosmatos could have done in the future. But he's there the entire time. His music is throughout this movie, and it is amazing.
And then you throw in Josh's favorite thing, the font, the black metal font.
Oh, yes. God, yes, that's so great. That's so great. Everything about this movie. The cinematography looks like a movie from the 70s. All that grainy, that perfect grain that they get. I mean, even Tarantino's got to be looking like, man, I wish I could have done that a little bit better like that. It was so amazing, the graininess of it, and just the feel. They capture the feel and the tone so beautifully, and then it calms down for a few minutes there at the start, and kind of lays you into it, and then they introduce the bad guys, and they come in just in sort of an amazing fashion. It's like the Manson family.
They out Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. What's the weirdest thing in a Nicolas Cage movie? Not him? Oh, that's an accomplishment.
Oh, and he's weird.
Yeah.
Josh, what did you think?
Really? Oh, me. Okay. Well, I was hoping, but you at least
if you want me to go first, I can, but...
maybe this is a nice sandwich effect here, because I like it, okay, but I kind of don't get it, and so maybe you'll finish it off with an explanation for me. I mentioned all of these keywords that you guys have already spoken of as I was watching it: heavy metal opera, font, Tarantino, all of those title placards that he does in between scenes or whatnot. I was like, oh, well, that's a very Tarantino-esque type of thing to separate the narrative here. So it's going to get slightly crazier with each particular moment up until a coda, which is exactly what happens, and that's great. You said she has a creepiness to her that looks effective. It's almost Alien, and I called her Shelley Duvall at the beginning of the movie,
right,
who was almost cast as Ripley in Alien, which is great. So thanks for that one. It's a nice lead-in. It might be just a little bit too long, okay? And there's a bit too much pregnancy going on with some of these scenes. And so I'm seeing a director that has a really interesting vision. Cinematography-wise, I'm with you. I thought that was great. The colors to this movie are magnificent. You're not sure if you're watching something that's in a dream or if that's natural lighting, but it certainly brings you down to their level, which is an excellent way to experience a film. This experience reminded me a bit of The Neon Demon, and I'm glad that you mentioned that before we watched this week, because I kind of said, well, I don't need this to make sense for me to enjoy it, because I've seen something like The Neon Demon before, where it's clearly grotesque. People are making decisions that don't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of angst that doesn't necessarily have words to it in a standard fashion, but it may be a little too long. Like at 1 hour and 51 minutes, I think is where it clocked in at roughly. Trim that down by 20 minutes or so, and then you've got a clear beginning, middle, and coda that would work for me. And I'm not trying to tell this director what to do, because I think he's got some really great ideas. Just narrow it down.
It's possible that because we were in the theater, Kevin Smith hosted a Q&A afterwards.
Oh.
Which, kind of helped. Maybe that helped. I mean, the Q&A was fantastic. Freaking Nicolas Cage walks out dressed like Elvis meets Michael Jackson. It was ridiculous. And every answer was so, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Under the influence?
Kind of. It was just, I don't know. It was just ridiculous. The director is clearly afraid of his own shadow. He hates being on stage talking, so he's looking down, not making eye contact at all. You got Kevin Smith being Kevin Smith. Then you got these two crazy actors up there, and it was just a random I don't know. It just kind of made it better. I think the reason I don't like the Neon Demon comparison is that, in a way, this is kind of art for the sake of art. There's really nothing you didn't get. It's about as straightforward as it comes. It's literally about a logger going on a revenge mission, and that's kind of all it is. The way Neon Demon, the art seems to have a purpose, and there's a purpose. I mean, it looks good. I don't mind that it's art for the sake of art, because it is neat. And the way he described the way he put it together was that it's like he was molding it with clay, but then he would like grab this from the sandbox and this from, and all of a sudden now he's got faces doing weird things and faces melting, and he's he was kind of he was just kind of grabbing stuff that he liked as a kid and putting it in this movie, not necessarily for a reason other than he wanted to, and making it look good. And that doesn't bother me. To me, it was fun because of that, and I think the theater experience maybe made the runtime better. I haven't watched it yet on TV. You might be right. It's hard to say. To me, it's kind of like Army of Darkness meets that heavy metal cartoon movie.
Oh, yeah.
With art for the sake of art thrown in there as well. Because it is a very simple, fun movie, and instead of Bruce Campbell, it's Nicolas Cage. And, and I don't know. He was a big He-Man fan, so the over-the-top characters are And he mentions He-Man in the Q&A afterwards, too, and Nicolas Cage wasn't talking.
I'm glad that you said that. Linus Roche instantly became a candidate for Skeletor for me as a result of this movie. But speaking of Linus Roche, playing this guy that for a while in the movie I was thinking, okay, this is Satan. Then I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is Jesus. He's got a cross on him. No, hold on a second. Is there somebody in the Bible named Jeremiah that I'm not remembering? And then I'm trying to figure this whole thing out about if this is actual descent into actual hell or not. And it doesn't matter in the end. Like, you can take it however you want to. But the fact that it's not literal, you know, it ends up making his character work a little bit more because he's not the devil incarnate or whatever. And you never see the devil, like, mocked on screen or be vulnerable like that. So it works either way you want to look at it. I guess I'm really happy with that character and all of the crazy people they made as the Jesus freaks, as they call them in this one. It's just great. Anytime you've got a band of crazies, you have the... I'm in trouble here, but the Rob Zombie group of crazies that, like, I don't have any sympathy for them ever. I just want somebody to cut their heads off. That's it. But then this company is like, oh, wow, they had some really bad LSD trips. That's why they're this bonkers, and the film makes that very clear. Okay, I understand why they're bonkers now.
And I think you can't underestimate the importance of drugs in this movie because, you know, I had some issues with a couple of the kind of characters who seemed almost indestructible. They seemed demonic, but perhaps it was just not only are they on drugs, but then at a certain point, Cage is on the drugs too, and maybe that's what it is that
which is a fantastic scene, by the way.
Yeah. Oh my God, that axe is a superstar.
Well, at one point I was like, is he not going to use it?
Yeah, because then he put it back up.
Oh, there's a chainsaw fight in this movie. I mean,
a hilarious chainsaw fight. But I mean, these are very much Army of Darkness type things, just with this weird little art house vibe to it that Army of Darkness doesn't have.
Yes, and a score that you could maybe describe as like part Stranger Things, part Metallica album. I was describing it during the film as you've got the synth going on the side, but then every once in a while you hear a little with the guitar. I'm like, I see what they're doing here. It made sense.
It wasn't like it was traditional metal in the score, but it gave you that feeling. You know, it kind of gave you that metal feeling without being, you know, Slayer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the theatrics of kind of that Swedish metal sound, which makes sense. A guy named Johannes would make that.
Right.
And I had commented before our Sicario episode with that first movie how intimidating that score was. And this is the same guy who did the score for Arrival as well. And this is his last film score. He looked to me like one of those guys that's going to supplant Morricone or something like that. That moody, very instrumental-based type of score instead of a whole lot of bong drums. Like, I love Hans Zimmer, but, you know, we've got a lot of that theatrics going on right now. He started to be starting this trend of mood music, for lack of a better term, mood music, that really propped those films up. I mean, you could play the Arrival score, and I know which one we're talking about. You know, the Sicario score. I know this one, too. I'm going to remember this one for sure.
Yeah, part of the Q&A, I mean, Kevin Smith really got fascinated on, what's his name's dick. They spent a lot of time on
Linus Roche.
Nicolas Cage turned that role down.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted him to play. I don't know. It's just... I need to find that Q&A and put it on our Facebook page. It's got to be out there somewhere because literally when Nicolas Cage walks on, one, he sits on the microphone and it kind of feeds back a little bit, makes a weird noise. Two, he really looks like he's all leather. But
like gold leather.
Yeah, like an Elvis suit, but then like a Michael Jackson gold kind of jacket. It's really... And then these
red
stupid
sunglasses
glasses
that he wears throughout the entire... He comes in the room and then puts on the red sunglasses.
Yes. He put them on when he sat down.
All right.
And... and then... I'm sorry. Kevin Smith asked just kind of a simple question. If he gets, like... during the scenes where they're blowing stuff up and there's fire on him, he was like, I'm kind of opposite of everybody else in the world. When I drink coffee, I get tired. When I, he's talking just total ignorance, but it's hilarious. He was talking about being in this burning building and just kind of like, this is pretty awesome. And he's supposed to be running out of the building. But it's just, I don't know. I can't do it justice because you really need to watch this. Even the vision in your head can't do what they really were. No,
I just wish it was, a little more reined in. And that's a hard thing to do when you're talking about the creative freedom this director probably had on this project. With his last name being Cosmatos, do we know if he's George's son?
He is. The way he funded his first movie, the Beyond the Black Rainbow, was he was the cinematographer or one of the ADs on Tombstone. So the money he makes on royalties from Tombstone, he used to make his first movie. And then I believe the studio they did this through was crowdfunded. It's like Legion M or something like that. I've been kind of looking into them. I'm trying to find it, see if we can get them on the podcast.
Yeah, that would be really neat. We were talking about how the story is separated into stanzas or scenes or whatnot. There's a scene towards the middle where Nicolas Cage does his initial headhunting, and I was thinking to myself, this movie is going down a path that I'm enjoying quite a bit because that's some of the most gory crap I've seen in a long time. You can't have Nicolas Cage do another role in this film once you see that part. Once the entire contents of a throat come on his face, like nobody else but Nicolas Cage can pull off the look that he pulls off. And I'm like, oh, now I'm in. Okay, this movie's been okay so far. Now I'm really in. It doesn't quite finish like that. So there's a clear difference between beginning, middle, and end to this film. All three things have their own style, but that one, that's the height of the film for me, is when he starts going on this rampage. The kills are impressive.
Yeah, especially even the final one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me want to do drugs just to see. I don't really need to watch 2001 High or anything like that. I mean, I've never really been high, so I don't. But this was like, this might be worth trying. If I'm gonna pick a movie, it would probably be this one.
Even his character, and just right after he offs somebody, there's a large pile of coke right in the middle of the room. I'm all bloodied. Let my stick my face in it. It's gonna be okay.
But yeah, it's on Amazon now. You can buy it for $20. You can rent it for $6?
Yep.
It really is worth watching just for the. I don't know.
Cage says he hates the memes about him, but then he steers right into them 3 movies in a row. What's that about? This is like Army of One, Mom and Dad, and now this. He plays exactly into the Nicolas Cage meme of him bug-eyed and screaming.
This movie it makes those 2 movies pale in comparison. I mean, those movies are just kind of weird fun, and Mom and Dad has one scene that's very Nicolas Cage. Army of One is just, but this is just, I don't. It's cool that he's picking these smaller projects and not just doing Con Air or The Rock or whatever anymore. But I don't know.
Even Bill Duke from The Predator, the original Predator, makes his way into this movie. It's a nice little bookend for the week.
Which I thought was an awesome scene, but I guess if you're going to cut 20 minutes out, that's the scene you're cutting, Josh. So,
boy, I suppose you're right. That does kind of deaden everything right in the middle there. But
I mean, I loved it at the moment, but I'm curious what the TV experience is versus the theatrical. But I guess I'll be able to also carry that over every time I see it now.
Yeah.
But
it was amazing, though.
Yeah, probably it's definitely a top 5 at the moment for me. This year. A Simple Favor.
A Simple Favor, yes. Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively in a movie that combines sort of the elements of a suspense thriller and a comedy, and does so in a way that is so deft and so witty and smart that you really just can't see it coming. Anna Kendrick plays a mommy vlogger who she does lots of tips for mom. That's what she does, and she doesn't have any friends, and she's just kind of devoted to her kid and devoted to her live streaming channel. And then she meets Blake Lively. Blake Lively, who is not dedicated to her kid. She's got a job, and she's kind of more invested in that than she is in being a parent or a wife, which, she's in her own little world. She's the cool mom, and she's the ultimate cool mom. Like, she is the simply coolest mom. She calls on Anna Kendrick for some favors to pick up her kid and kind of watch him, almost like she's the nanny almost at a point, though she's not getting paid, and repays her sort of by being her friend and trying to get her to be more confident and not apologize and stand up for herself a little bit more. And in that relationship, it becomes it becomes strangely transactional, where she doesn't want to get attached to Anna Kendrick, but Anna Kendrick's kind of irresistible that way, and then suddenly she's gone. She disappears. She's out of the movie for a while, and Anna Kendrick's character tries to figure out how to find her, and very earnestly approaches this through her vlog and through kind of an I Love Lucy episode of investigation. And it's so clever the way that Paul Feig combines these two tones. Really, the influences here, I kid you not, are Hitchcock, The French New Wave, and I Love Lucy. Those are the big influences on this movie, and it all works incredibly well. I really love this movie, and Blake Lively is incredible in this film. She seems like a character who is calculated, but the fact of the matter is that the Anna Kendrick character is far more calculated. She's far more planning in advance. I really think the Blake Lively character is making this up as she goes. Even as cool and calm and collected as she is, I think her plans are more often than not just what she's thinking at that time. She provokes other characters just to see how they'll react, and then she bounces off of that reaction as to what she plans to do with it. And when somebody kind of comes in who has a similar way of going about things and kind of flying by the seat of their pants, it definitely throws her to have to be the one who comes up with a plan in that moment. And I really loved the way that Paul Feig played that. And then Anna Kendrick's, holding the comedy stuff up really well. And it's so good. This is so good. I love this movie.
Yeah, did you see it, Josh?
Nope.
Yeah, I've been I've had this one circled for a long time, mainly because it was hard to it's hard to really know what was going on in the trailer. You knew Paul Feig was involved, but you knew it was kind of, was it a comedy? Was it a drama? What is this? I've seen comparisons to Gone Girl, which then also gets me excited about it. I was my week to pick the classic. I was pretty proud in hindsight. The Maltese Falcon, it really is like I Love Lucy meets the Maltese Falcon. And I would say it's more noir than Hitchcock, I guess, which I guess Hitchcock kind of dabbled in that as well. But it definitely has that noir kind of, it's constantly moving. Every little thing in this movie plays a role. Every little tiny prop, every ounce of dialogue, every character matters in how you get to the end of this movie. But at the same time, it's a ton of fun. Blake Lively is, I don't know. You kind of find out more about her as the movie goes on, but she's kind of, everything she does is completely self-serving. But Sean's right. She's completely insecure and flying by the seat of her pants. And Anna Kendrick just wants a friend. And, I don't know. It's just really clever. And the way they use the vlog to really tie the criminal investigation together. It's basically the PI from, the Maltese Falcon, the way she does it there. It is a ton of fun. It's not Gone Girl,
no.
But it's a nice kind of fun, just the way he ties the comedy and the noir together that really works with this movie. And I think a lot of people will enjoy it. If there's anything wrong with it, I guess, is the fact that it's not Gone Girl. It's not that out there like I was kind of hoping it would be, but I had so much fun with it, I don't really care. All right, with that, our undisputed classic is the Maltese Falcon.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody can have. I mean the three best friends that anybody can have. That's right, the three best friends.
Yes, directed by John Huston and starring Humphrey Bogart in the legendary role of Sam Spade. Sam Spade, of course, a legendary detective through magazine stories and from books. And here played by Humphrey Bogart. He's got a partner named Archer. The two of them take on a case of a woman who claims to be searching for her sister. And she hires them, and the partner goes to follow the guy that she claims has her sister, and he ends up dead. And the movie then has a number of revelations from there, all centering around the search for this legendary Maltese Falcon, which in the classic Hitchcock parlance is just that thing everybody wants. It's the plot driver. It's what everyone wants, and they'll do whatever they can to get it. And that's they're really all the motivation you need. You just fill it in then with brilliantly colorful characters and a couple of clever twists, and you got yourself a pretty great noir mystery. A movie like this exists a lot on personality, and of course Bogart has personality to spare as Sam Spade. He's the model for Dr. House. If you didn't know that, like that's who they play. That's what they modeled Dr. House on is Humphrey Bogart and Sam Spade because he's extraordinarily observant of human behavior. That's Sam Spade's thing, and most of the revelations in this movie are just him calling somebody a liar because he's just that good. He can tell when he's a human lie detector. You could say that's a convenient trait, but it works because Bogart sells it so very, very well. And of course, the direction by John Huston is so very, very smart.
Yeah, and back to A Simple Favor. Literally, if you put Lucille Ball in Humphrey Bogart's role, that's what The Simple Favor is, which kind of makes it its own little fun thing, but not the Maltese Falcon, if that makes sense. But yeah, this is kind of the ultimate film noir, isn't it? I mean, in a lot of ways, it's I like the more modern ones like Chinatown and whatnot, but this one is really the one everybody puts on the pedestal. And
I would add to that, maybe The Killers from '55, or maybe I just had it in my head, now it's gone. The Third Man with Orson Welles and Joseph Cotten. But yeah, this is obviously the progenitor of even those,
right?
I enjoyed it quite a bit. This would be the second time that I've seen it. I went on a bit of a Humphrey Bogart rampage in the early 2000s as a result of seeing Casablanca and also the play Play It Again, Sam. So I got familiar with Bogart all up front. And then lately we've come to know The Treasure of Sierra Madre last year, and then this one revisiting it, realizing that I didn't remember as much as I did the first time. There's a lot of dialogue going on in this movie, and if you're observant to the characters, you can follow the story well. But I think it is important to pay attention to this movie. You can. It's not like there are so many references from 1941 that you're not going to follow along. It's an eminently watchable film, as most of the things that Bogart is in have been. But you do need to pay attention, and that's how the end of the film ends up being satisfying. None of these characters and their payoffs matter if you don't see what they're doing earlier on in the film. I enjoyed the character work from Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet again. I mean, these character actors from the golden age of Hollywood are really something. It's almost as if you wish they would just have their own movies somewhere back in that time, but they really didn't. They were always character roles.
So Peter Lorre had a thing in Germany back in the day. Okay. If you ever check out M, Fritz Lang's M, he's pretty amazing.
Okay. I like the fact that...
But he's not a guy, he's not a movie star. I mean, you can look at Peter Lorre and you know he's not a movie star. You know how I was first introduced to Peter Lorre, though? Not even Casablanca, but Bugs Bunny episodes. Bugs Bunny did an episode where he had a whole bunch of movie stars in it, and you had to, as a kid, I had to, study to figure out who the heck he was talking to, and one of them was Peter Lorre.
That makes sense. And, of course, this time he shows up as a guy named Joe Cairo. He's kind of the ethnicity that you can place him as an Arabian. You can place him as a Latin American guy, a French guy, a German guy. And he seems to be able to be, like a lot of character actors at the time, just tan enough to be this nationality. I was picking that out from this movie. But aside from that, I would like to give this movie props for reminding me of what Raiders of the Lost Ark and all other treasure hunting films have going for them. The pursuit of the thing on all sides is predicated on the strength of their interactions. And I'm thinking of Raiders as being the first one to really do that. No, you got to go really. I am admitting that I had bias for it, and in watching this again, okay, no. Not only is there literally like an idol towards the end of the film, but also their drive towards it, the intelligence needed to usurp it and say that you have it when you don't actually quite yet have it, but then have somebody else bring it to you so that you're not the one with all of the risk being taken here. There's a lot of exchange going on that I think it's just interesting enough that I'd be interested to know what else Sam Spade is involved in. You're talking about comics and other novels from the time. I know that Dashiell Hammett wrote this book originally, including The Thin Man, as I understand. I'm more interested to know if there's more stuff like this. Did Bogart play this character again, for example?
I think he might have. I'm not sure. I don't recall exactly. I think this character's been portrayed in other movies.
Okay.
I believe he may have been the inspiration for the Chinatown character.
Oh, definitely.
That would make plenty of sense.
But yeah, how many times he played, I'm not sure on that.
I know that I was confusing this also with The Big Sleep. A lot of scenes from that one I kept waiting to happen, and then I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's not in this movie. This is the Maltese Falcon. So watching a lot of that Bogart stuff really did me a disservice. I should have spread it out. But
as a favor to the people who in their heads are screaming at us right now, it's called the MacGuffin, is what
I thought you were going to say it, so I didn't chime in.
Hitchcock's terminology was the MacGuffin, the thing that everybody wants.
Yeah, and kind of to Josh's point, you got to pay attention because, similar to A Simple Favor, or even more so, I guess, everything in this movie matters, and it comes to, in the end, it all plays a role, and there's no wasted time, there's no wasted props, there's no wasted anything. It's an important, it's just a movie you pay attention to, and then it all kind of, without cheating, it all makes sense, and that's what a lot of the good noir movies do, is it happens naturally, and it works, and it's watchable, and it's fun. So,
and Bogart once again playing, no pun intended, based on what you talked about with Bugs Bunny, but the crime Bugs Bunny, the guy that has to play all of these different parties off of each other and still maintain this screen presence that he does. It's really incredible for a guy that isn't necessarily like stepping off the screen with his handsomeness. He really controls it every time that I've seen him.
The key is persona. He has an obvious persona that grabs the screen and grabs the viewer and holds you in place.
And just in terms of name recognition, this is a movie you should go back and see. The reason I call it kind of the ultimate noir was not so much that's necessarily the best, but it is, the name is the most popular of a lot of them. And for that alone, you should go see this movie. Anything else on the Maltese Falcon?
Number 18 in 1988. Squeezed and pulled and hurt my neck in 1988.
Squeezed and pulled and hurt your neck in 1988.
All right, let's spend 30 seconds on 1988.
So one film released this week made less than $1 million and is not available on all your major streaming services, called 7 Hours to Judgment. It's starring and directed by Beau Bridges, my brother's namesake, and I have no idea what's up with this movie at all. And I thought about even introducing some stuff that wasn't on all of the prevalent lists for 1988 just to fill this space with something, but I decided to watch Mandy instead of Return of the Killer Tomatoes. So how about that?
So that's why I almost picked The Last Picture Show. I couldn't remember why, but I'm glad I went to Maltese Falcon because it does work better this week, I think, with A Simple Favor. Next week, we got Fahrenheit 11/9, the Michael Moore Donald Trump movie. The House with Clock in the Wall, is that what it's called?
Clock Walls. In its Walls.
Eli Roth.
Who they're doing their best to hide. And Life Itself, they're guaranteed movies, I think. Or will we get the Fahrenheit movie? It's coming to a lot of theaters.
I think so. I don't know for sure.
We are kind of a right-wing area, but
no double feature with The Death of a Nation.
Jesus. Our classic this week is Galaxy Quest, correct?
Yes, it is, and that is because in 1988, Gorillas in the Mist turns 30, and it's going to be a Sigourney Weaver-centric episode. I'm sorry. She hasn't had...
like 50% of the way into the episode on.
Right, you're right. It would be the classic, and then talking about Gorillas in the Mist and whatnot, but also the top 5 would be top 5 Sigourney Weaver movies, so you'll get to listen to me wax poetic for a while.
Aliens, Alien 3.
No, I've seen Dave.
And Ghostbusters.
And I do actually
doing his top 5 list.
I'm doing everybody's top 5. 2 Alien movies, 2 Ghostbusters movies, and something else.
Working Girl.
Galaxy Quest.
Okay, we're done.
No.
I'm not, again, she's got great movies out there, but these are classic movies.
That somebody is going to put Heartbreakers on their list at some point, even though it's a piece of garbage, and then there's fans of her later work, whatever that might be.
Heartbreakers is fun.
Chappie, if we're making a worst list, I could put Chappie on that.
Or not.
Oh, man. I walked right into it. I am going to be watching a movie of hers that predated our podcast called The Year of Living Dangerously with Mel Gibson, and it's directed by Peter Weir, of all people. And it's the only movie of hers pre-2000 that I have not seen. So I'll be doing that as well. It's not going to be the classic, but it might end up making my top 5.
How pissed off were the Bond people that somebody took that title? Right?
Yeah, I can see that one.
Mel Gibson should have been James Bond. He was too big of a movie star.
There was conjecture that that's why Henry Cavill was moving on or whatnot, because he really wanted to play Bond. But
that would be awesome. Only because I don't watch the Bond movies. And
that would mean he would have to see both Bond and Henry Cavill
at the same time.
We wish ill upon you.
Daniel Craig's bad enough, so I mean.
Okay. Well, Daniel Craig,
Superman.
Henry Cavill.
Old man
You
Superman.
gotta make a choice.
They can just switch.
Jesus Christ.
But that apparently is our show. I do want to thank our Patreon supporters before we move too much further. Up here are Key Grip Levels, Jason Bryant, and Charlie Messing. Our character actors, Cousin Jeff, Christina Cato, and Josh Paul.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Our special effects level, Sarah Ward and Corey from Ivy Envy.
May the Force be with you.
Our associate producer is Jason from New Mexico.
Everybody has to eat shaving cream once in a while.
And our movie stars are Uncle Jeff and Dave Sievers.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
If you want to be a Patreon supporter, ihatecritics.net/Patreon. Like I said, we have all the merch again. We're going to start sending that out. At some point, I'd like to make a store that for those who aren't Patreon supporters, if they want to buy an episode or buy the merch, they can. I need to put a PayPal link up. But just all this stuff takes a lot of time, and I have kids, and I'm an accountant, so I work a lot of hours. So forgive me and bear with me. I will get all that stuff done eventually, hopefully by 2019.
And happy newly married Patreon supporter, Sarah. I don't remember what your last name now is, but I did know the dude in college a little bit, so congratulations.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You asked us to do that earlier.
No, I was going to throw it in there no matter what. So
I appreciate that. Yeah, and one last thing before we let you go is go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We're getting back into the charts again. Libsyn kind of knocked us out, which is fine. But it'll help us move up those charts and compete again. And our downloads are still solid, so don't feel bad for us. But it'll get better if you rate and review the show and or be a Patreon supporter. So
it doesn't have anything to do with our Ghost with Dicks podcast title?
What's wrong with it?
Nothing. I'm just saying. I like how you exchanged letters with symbols so that you can still get dicks in there.
I'm not positive you can say bad word. Although, tell them Steve Dave had fuck in their title. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Apple kicks your podcast out when you put bad words in it. But
well, maybe, but let me, maybe they were ghosts that were like teammates with dicks. Like dick this and dick that. They were just teammate ghosts.
Right, I was just playing it safe because I don't want to deal with the...
Of course.
Having to do that after the fact. But yeah, I don't know. People were asking me, or I asked a couple people, is it okay if I call it Ghost with Dicks? They're like, is your ghost in your house fucking you now? And I'm like, no. Josh said it on the show.
That you know of.
Yeah. I did sleep in the haunted room last night just because I went and saw A Simple Favor late at night, got back at midnight. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go up to the scary room and sleep there and see what happens. And guess what? Nothing happened.
He's still here, or is he?
I got that scary looking old person mirror and nothing happened at all.
Speaking of mirrors, there's no reflection behind you.
I know.
Bob is the ghost.
I can see through you.
He's been dead the whole podcast.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, let's end it so we can go to Flick Shark. See you next week.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean the three best friends that anybody could have. That's right, the three best friends.
All right. Do we run Maltese Falcon through or just go random? We're definitely doing one random before we do it.
You got something good?
Not that good, but it'll be fun anyway. It's Predator is one of them.
Of course.
I'm sure it'll win, though. Predator and The Graduate.
Oh, yeah, The Predator. Yeah. Graduate so far up its own ass.
I will take Predator.
As will I. What we should start doing is like running movies that we all liked through, like all the movies on the show. But that takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And of course, my internet depends on the day with it. Wow, it is totally frozen. Everything's frozen.
Henry Cavill or Daniel Craig?
Fishing with Gandhi.
Thank you. That's what I was going for.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig.
If I have to watch a Bond movie, I want to watch it with Daniel Craig. That's all I'm saying.
If it becomes a Henry Cavill role, though, would you be more or less interested? In theory, less, yes?
I mean...
What if you had Daniel Craig directed by Michael Bay in a Bond movie, or Henry Cavill directed by Danny Boyle? Hey, when your internet's down, I got to make something up.
Yeah, that's... I mean, I don't really care. I like literally one Bond movie. It was that first
Casino
one.
Royale?
Yeah. Even though the poker sucked in it, it was still fun. Well, technically it sucks in Rounders, and Rounders is... But I don't know. Whatever makes Sean more miserable is for the show. That's kind of what I'm going for.
So Adam Sandler as both Bond and Superman.
What I really want is Tom Cruise to leave the Mission Impossible series and have Henry Cavill play Ethan Hunt. That's what I want. But that's not going to happen.
No, they killed Cavill in that movie.
Well, I know.
Oh, spoiler alert! I was going to go see it this week.
I'm just
Movie
kidding.
Pass was like, buy one, get one free.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just messing with you.
All right.
You should see what it does in 15 minutes, though. It's ridiculous. I think my internet's just down. This is crazy. Any other things you want to throw at us, Josh?
All right.
Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Kermit.
Clearly Kermit, but to stretch it out a little further, Miss Piggy or the woman in the band. I can't remember her name right now.
Miss Piggy, just for name recognition.
Fair enough. Okay. So Rolf or Dr. Teeth? Both musicians. Both tickle the ivories.
Probably Rolf.
I'm going to go with Dr. Teeth.
I think Dr. Teeth's a better musician.
Yeah, but Rick Wakeman's better than Billy Joel, but I'm still going to take
Okay, fair enough. So then, in terms of artists in their own fields, you've got Dr. Bunsen Honeydew or the Swedish Chef.
Swedish Chef.
Thank you. I too will go with the Swedish Chef.
Yeah, well,
I got an Uncle Jeff one for you. He put up. He goes, "Which one do you get rid of? The Godfather, One for the Cuckoo's Nest, Rocky or the clear answer, Kramer versus Kramer, which is a fine movie, but come on.
Sure.
And he thought I was crazy for picking Kramer versus Kramer. Am I crazy?
No. You're absolutely. We saw Kramer versus Kramer.
And I think part of it was him giving me shit, but he would take Rocky out, which obviously Godfather and Cuckoo's Nest, I'm not going to, even though it's my favorite movie, I'm not going to argue.
Right.
But
I remember when we talked about Kramer versus Kramer, very early part of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. We were going through the Oscar winners that we hadn't yet seen as a group. And Meryl Streep's role in that movie is so... I mean, she's good at being a shitty mother, that's for sure. But it was so hard to watch that. Why would you... I couldn't identify with her character, have any sympathy at all. And if we're going the Meryl Streep route, that's not her most flattering role to really get behind. And even I recognize The Godfather is better than Kramer versus Kramer, despite the fact that I'm not crazy about it.
right, it's like the Beatles. I mean, you just
Fishing with Gandhi.
Yeah, Godfather of the Beatles, Fishing with Gandhi. There you go. The only person.
Okay,
in
would
the
I
world.
rather watch The Godfather or listen to the Beatles?
Then time out. The same amount. Just one Beatles song of The Godfather.
Just one. Well, which Beatles song?
Hey Jude, it's almost as long as The Godfather.
That's the only one that I have in my collection, I might add, done by the actual Beatles.
I'm just kidding. I love Hey Jude.
Hey Jude is great, but the ending of Hey Jude goes on as long as The Godfather. No. In this theoretical, you have to listen to them say nah, that whole part for 2 hours.
Godfather.
Okay. Get your Paul McCartney tickets?
Does anyone have their Paul McCartney tickets? Oh, well, you don't count. You always get in shit free.
No, I had to pay for them. You want to hear, since we're not going to have the fucking flick chart, I'll just tell you my Paul McCartney story. So I'm at work buying tickets like I'm supposed to. I even told my boss this story because it's... There's a guy nobody likes who's kind of my equal, but in the sales department, and I'm in the head of the accounting department, and he calls me up a quarter till, goes, hey, you trying to get Paul McCartney tickets? I was like, yeah. And he's like, me too. He's like, how long you been in the waiting room? And I'm like, 15 minutes or so. He's like, well, I think I've been in there longer, so I'll probably get in first. If I get in first, I'm going to get you 2 tickets. And then if you get in first, you get me 2 tickets. And in my head, I'm going, no, I don't want to do that. Out loud, I say, sure. Guess who gets in first? Me. I'm able to secure 4 tickets. However, in the upper bowl, I randomly pick 2 Budweiser seats where you get like you free beer, but it's $700 a ticket. I don't realize that until I go to check out.
Oh, shit.
So now I got to go back because he's not going to pay me $700, and I sure as shit. If I'm going to pay $700, I'm going to sit in the front. Right. So I go back. Obviously, at this point, it's close to sold out. You're not getting 4 tickets, even
of course
close.
not.
You're lucky to get 2. I can't get 2 anywhere. Finally, I get 1 ticket. That's all I could get. But because I agreed to work with this douchebag to get tickets,
only you goes. Oh,
and I was going to take you, and
you spared your loving wife from having to go see a Beatle.
She didn't really care.
That is real romance right there.
Oddly enough, he's like my 3rd favorite Beatle.
Sure,
He's everybody's 3rd favorite Beatle.
And he's either your favorite or least favorite.
Do you have to have favorite Beatles?
Everybody has. Everybody that likes or is.
I mean, everybody. It's John Lennon, and then it's Paul. But if you're smart, it's George Harrison.
Yeah, it's Harrison, Lennon, McCartney, Ringo for me.
Sure, all of the hipster Beatles fans tell me that Harrison's the one that I need to like.
2 best songs. While my guitar gently weeps, and Here Come the Sun. Come on. I mean, and Helter Skelter's pretty good. I think that's a Paul song. Yeah, enjoy the music podcast. From the movie guys.
Wasn't there a 5th Beatle at some point?
Ringo. I think there was another drummer. I don't remember his name. I'm not that smart.
I thought there was a guitarist. Sutcliffe. Wasn't he a guitarist? Dropped out like right before they got big.
Ringo,
he left the band. They had a drummer. Yes, they had another drummer who I think they fired to bring in Ringo.
so this was just.
And then they had.
Oh, because then John just kind of played whatever.
Stuart Sutcliffe was was one of them, and then he quit the band before they actually went and got big.
Of course, it's kind of like when Boyz II Men dropped Mark Nelson as the 5th member of their group, and they're like, "Oh, you just don't harmonize well with us. We're going to be big. You've got to be left behind." I understand completely that kind of group dynamic with good musicians.
All right, DH or no DH?
DH. Absolutely. If I have to watch certain pitchers like Yu Darvish flail away at a major league curveball, then I should be expected to vote for the DH. And clearly, back in 1989, when I used to like create my own leagues and stuff off to the side because I didn't get enough baseball, I only got the Cubs, and then every Wednesday I got 2 games on ESPN. That was it for the week. Because I didn't want to watch the Braves. They pissed me off that much. On the Superstation, I would create stuff so that in the future both leagues had the DH, because I couldn't stand the thought of even fake creating a flailing pitcher.
Yeah, my buddy and I, who was actually one of our Patreon members, we created our own baseball game using a deck of cards and baseball cards, and played seasons of that. 50-game seasons, kept the stats.
Oh,
that was
sorry.
That was amazing.
Made a mess in your chair. I don't know what else to say.
It was so cool. It was the coolest game ever. You just keeping your own stats and playing the games while you're watching baseball at the same time. It's baseball overload, but it's the best.
There's nothing better than stat overloading. I understand.
He's still got all of his stats too. It's crazy.
So do I. I still have my binder at home with all the players' names on it and everything. There was so this will be an excellent podcast aside. Pardon me, just to shoehorn this. Okay, back in the day, I had created this player, right, and I gave him the name of whatever.
Adams.
No, I was in my league. Yes, of course. Switch hitter for the third base Cubs. Of course. Number 30. Yeah, but back in the day, I had created this behemoth of a first baseman, and he was a right-handed hitter. I had him with a goatee, right? And I was like, this is the equivalent of Clu Haywood and that dude that I played in Geneseo one time. Now, it might be you, but I didn't know your name then, of course, but I always envisioned the way that this dude swung when I was playing Geneseo. I can't be for sure it was you, but it's a nice little aside to this fantasy.
It probably wasn't me because I didn't really play our A team against.
Okay. I see.
I do remember batting left-handed against Orion at one point, but
as did I. That's where I got my grand slam, my lefty grand slam. It was in Geneseo.
The only reason we did it though is because we needed to get out.
Jesus Christ! I pitched that game.
Again, I'm not positive. I mean, that I don't know the lineup, or if we were playing each other. There may have been more than one Orion team. I don't know.
That's okay. That's back when I was trying my Frank Castillo wind-up, really trying to get that down.
But yeah, I mean, Ivy Envy, Corey keeps wanting to talk about the DH versus no DH, and they just don't. Or they keep shutting him down because he's very much pro DH as well. But his argument keeps going, the Cubs suck at hitting. Like, that's not a good argument.
No, that's not the argument to have, but yeah.
Well, it's either entertainment or strategy. There's more strategy without the DH. There's more entertainment with it. What do you want?
I think you get your option, just like standard DH rules apply. If you want your pitcher to hit, all right, well, then you don't employ the DH. That
you ever wonder why pitchers can't hit, though? I've never,
They're supposed to be the best athletes, right? But
shortstop.
In theory, the pitchers do more conditioning.
Do they just stop hitting at a certain point? You just stop hitting?
They don't even practice in the minor leagues hitting. And they do very little, unless you're like Carlos Zambrano, very little hitting.
But like Ohtani, in Japan, they don't ever stop hitting for anything.
There's a line of demarcation. Once you get to college ball, or if you're drafted or whatnot, they figure out what your strongest suit is, and you maximize that suit. So Wilson Contreras started out as a pitcher, and they made him a catcher because he sucked at pitching. And that makes a lot of sense. A lot of pitchers, in fact, would be converted other players, like Juris Familia for the A's, if I'm not mistaken.
And now he wants to be Javier Baez so bad, and it sucks because he keeps doing the stupid shit Baez does, but he gets out. It just doesn't.
Yeah. I think it's his legs.
Ivy Envy light. All right. Sorry, the flick chart failed. You got music talk, baseball talk, and
insight into my childhood again. It's just a regular podcast.
All right. Bye.